By March 1940, Britain's survival had become a math problem written in cold Atlantic spray. Admiral Karl Dönitz's U-boats were sending 300,000 tons of merchant shipping to the bottom every month. The Royal Navy had 200 escorts to guard an ocean. Winston Churchill, newly back at the Admiralty, scrawled it in the margin of a memo. "We need ships, not tomorrow. Now." The traditional answer gleamed in the slipways. Destroyers, sleek, knife-bowed 36-knot thoroughbreds with 4.7-inch guns, torpedo batteries, turbines that screamed like anger itself. Magnificent and useless in the only way that mattered. Each one cost about $900,000 and 18 months of the rarest labor Britain possessed. 30 a year at best, while the U-boats were killing in real time. In May 1940, as France buckled, a naval architect named William Reed laid a different drawing on the table. So homely, senior officers almost laughed. It wasn't even a warship. It was a commercial whaler's hull, the Southern Pride type. Thick-skinned, small, stubborn, built from off-the-shelf steel with engines any coastal yard could mount. Slow, ugly, cheap. $90,000. 8 months. For the price of 1 destroyer, you could have 10. For the time it took to build 3 destroyers, you could carpet the sea lanes with 20. It changed the equation from build the perfect submarine hunter to deny submarines a place to hunt. Commander George Cressy, head of anti-submarine warfare, didn't see a fishing boat. He saw geometry. Convoys don't need dueling rapiers. They need a hedge of spears. The Atlantic isn't a duel. It's a map. On July 25, 1940, while the Battle of Britain raged overhead, the Admiralty ordered 58 of these vessels and gave them names that sounded like apologetic garden gifts. Gladiolus, Bluebell, Campanula, Nasturtium. The press called them corvettes. Sailors called them other things. Traditionalists howled. 16 knots in good weather, 1 4-inch gun, depth charges flung off rails like coal sacks. No Hedgehog mortars yet, no turbines, no grace. You were going to fight wolfpacks with tugboats. The counter-argument wasn't romantic, it was arithmetic. Empty ocean and undefended merchantmen were losing the war. By September, the first of them, HMS Gladiolus, finished trials and plodded west toward the approaches. She did not look like a warship. She would help save Britain anyway. Dönitz had refined his doctrine since 1936. Old submarine theory made every boat a lone assassin. Dönitz organized crime. 1 U-boat shadowed a convoy and radioed its position. The rest converged like teeth. 6, 8, a dozen hulls attacking from different bearings at once. Escorts couldn't be in 6 places at the same time. The convoy broke like a shoal. In October 1940, convoy SC-7 discovered the arithmetic in blood. 43 ships, 2 escorts. By dawn, 21 merchants were gone, and the sea burned. Churchill named it in March 1941, the Battle of the Atlantic, and admitted later it was the only campaign that genuinely frightened him. Britain needed 55 million tons of imports per year to live. Lose that, and the island starved behind all the Spitfires in the world. The corvette answer didn't outfight wolfpacks. It outnumbered them. Put 8, 10, 12 escorts around a convoy, and the pack loses its angles. Force boats to dive, and their speed and radios vanish with the daylight. The math flips. By spring 1941, 89 corvettes prowl the western approaches, and convoy escort strength had tripled. U-boats still found targets, but their choreography fractured. A wolf pack formed around ON 127 in September 1941 and hit steel instead of gaps. Gladiolus, Bluebell, Campanula, Nasturtium, and more, petals with teeth, were already there, pinging, rolling charges, herding metal sharks underwater and breaking their timing. It wasn't elegant, it was everywhere. The blueprints Smith's dock unrolled were almost rude in their simplicity. 205 feet long, 33 feet of beam, a whaler's shoulders, and a merchantman's bones. Riveted plate, 3/8 of an inch, because that's what most yards could do in the rain. A single screw. And in the engine room, not turbines from a priesthood of machinists, but triple expansion reciprocating steam. Victorian technology, scaled up and stamped out by firms that also built colliery windows and factory plants. Heavy, thirsty, vibratory. Also available now. This was the trick. 7 British yards could build destroyers. Dozens could build corvettes. Hall Russell in Aberdeen. Harland and Wolff in Belfast. John Crown and Sons in Sunderland. Smith's Dock in Middlesbrough. They worked outside on open berths, burning rivets cherry red and hammering them home while gulls screamed. On 12th of November 1940, John Crown laid Campanula's keel. On 3rd June 1941, 7 months, she was at sea. In the 21 months it took Hawthorne Leslie to craft a single J-class jewel like HMS Jervis, British yards turned out 47 corvettes. Smith's dock hit a cadence of 1 launch every 17 days. The comparison with destroyers was painful and instructive. HMS Electra, turbines, 8 guns, 36 knots, was everything the Navy loved about itself. She cost $922,000 in 18 months. She died in 7 minutes at the Java Sea. You did not just lose a ship. You lost a year and a half of national concentration. Gladiolus cost $90,000. When U-568 killed her in October 1941, Britain grieved the men and laid down a replacement 3 weeks later. Heliotrope slid down the ways 7 weeks after that. The cycle, loss, replacement, commission, was faster than a single destroyer build. Quantity did something quality could not. It arrived. And then there was life aboard. Ask able seaman Ronald Rundle what a corvette was, and he will tell you it was a pendulum between hells. 40 degrees to port, hang, 40 to starboard, crash. 8 seconds a swing, 8 seconds forever. That was Force 6. Tuesday weather in the Western Ocean. A whaler's hull, short, round, 6'1" length to beam, made them nearly unsinkable by weather and nearly unlivable by man. The mess deck forward, where motion is worst, packed 40 ratings into a space the size of a modest sitting room. Hammocks hung so close that to move you turned sideways and slid between men like a bookmark. Sea water came in around doors and through vents. Clothes never dried. Salt sores bloomed on skin rubbed raw by wet wool. The medical officer wrote 12 frostbite cases on Bluebell in January and did not bother to note it in the log. It was normal. Bridges were open to the weather. Heating was a rumor and during alarm, forbidden. Smoke betrayed you. The engines pushed 16 knots in postcards and 12 knots in life. U-boats on the surface could run 17 and grin at you from the horizon. So you did not catch them. You made them dive and kept them there. Terrier work, Commander Peter Gretton called it. Corvettes could not outrun submarines. They could outlast them, and they did. A destroyer, with her precision machinery and twitchy pride, spent roughly 40% of her time in refit, fuel, and rest. Corvettes, with crude engines and crews of iron stomachs and green faces, spent 70% at sea. More sea days meant more contacts. More contacts meant more kills, not because a single flower could bully a Type 7 into submission, but because the U-boat had to choose surface and die by gunfire, or stay down and die tired. The ledger began to tilt. On 16 March 1941, Gladiolus found a contact at 400 yards on ASDIC, rolled a diamond pattern of depth charges, and crushed U-47, the legend of Scapa Flow. Bluebell took U-651 in June. Campanula destroyed U-74 in May. Narcissus accounted for U-568 in October. By the end of 1941, corvettes had 19 confirmed kills, more than British destroyers in the same period, because they were where the war was all the time. The cost was savage. 47 Flower-class corvettes were lost during the war, 22 to submarines, 11 to aircraft, 7 to mines, 4 to gunfire, 3 to collision. Average death toll, 65 souls. Their thin, merchant-grade plating could not forgive a torpedo. Their courage had to forgive everything else. Britain kept building. By mid-1942, there were more than 200 Flowers in commission. By 1943, the Castle class arrived, an improved hull that rolled less, more power for 20 knots, and Squid ahead, throwing mortars that let you attack without losing contact. Iteration without pausing production. Good enough now, better next month, best never if you wait. This industrial philosophy, platform proliferation, broke Dönitz's plan. Germany built wonders. The Type 7C, pure engineering, later the Type 91s, a submarine from the future with battery endurance and underwater sprint unheard of. They were magnificent and late. Each boat took 16 to 24 months. Components came from 27 factories. Specialist labor glued the schedule together. Even at peak, Germany commissioned 25 U-boats a month and had only 40% actually at sea at any given time. Britain and Canada put out 267 Flowers and 151 Castles, 418 escorts, and kept roughly 70% on station. Operational reality was not 1,153 U-boats versus 418 corvettes. It was about 460 boats at sea versus 290 corvettes that worked as teams while the enemy increasingly hunted alone. Repair was the quiet advantage. Bluebell tossed a connecting rod in February 1942. Londonderry pulled a spare out of a laid-up coaster, hoisted it aboard, and had her sailing in 4 days. A destroyer with turbine damage went home to a temple of precision for 6 weeks. Simplicity is a tactic. Admiral Percy Noble did the grim arithmetic in December 1941. Western approaches needed 300 escorts to blanket the routes. At destroyer rates, 8 years. At corvette rates, 18 months. And Britain was halfway there. The destroyer remained the tactically superior ship in every measurable way. Strategically, in 1941 or 42, it was a museum piece. Wars are not won by perfect weapons that arrive after the funeral. Crew testimony reads like endurance theater. Eating soup required timing your spoon to the roll. Men learned to sleep by hooking a bootlace around a pipe and their wrist so the ship couldn't fling them. You shaved on the inhale. You swallowed on the exhale. You braced for the next 8 seconds. And still they fought. The numbers at the end are blunt. Between 1940 and 1945, Flower-class corvettes took part in actions that destroyed 294 U-boats, 47 solo, 247 shared. Destroyers accounted for 174, frigates 187, aircraft killed the most at 386. But corvettes, technically the least capable, were second only to the sky. Britain lost 47 Flowers, about $4.2 million of whole cost. They helped sink roughly $73 million worth of U-boats and, more importantly, crews Germany could not replace. The exchange rate broke Dönitz in May 1943. That month, U-boat losses spiked to 41. Merchant losses fell to 264,000 tons. On May 24th, he pulled the wolfpacks from the North Atlantic. The crisis passed. Britain would not starve. The money story is colder and more decisive than steel. The entire corvette program, 267 Flowers at approximately $90,000 each and 151 castles, averaging about $140,000, cost about $45.2 million, roughly 2.8% of wartime naval spending. A destroyer-centric escort plan to achieve equivalent coverage would have demanded roughly 3,000 destroyers over the war's cycles of escort, refit, and loss. An absurdity costing about $2.7 billion. The difference, $2.5 billion, helped pay for the things that actually ended the war: Overlord, Torch, and Italy, the heavy bomber offensive. Quantity didn't just keep ships afloat. It kept the whole Allied strategy solvent. The final images belonged to people rather than programs. A corvette's bridge at night, green water slamming over it, the horizon a black sore. A mess deck that smells of salt, oil, and wet wool, where men cradle mugs they can't taste. A sonar operator with the headphones pressed so tight they leave bruises, calling rangers like prayers. A depth charge drum clicking as it feeds, the petty officer's hand steady on the firing lever. Thud. White water. Then the odd, obscene sigh of a bubble of oil breaking the surface and spreading like a stain on the page. Those ships rolled, leaked, froze, pounded, and saved the lifeline anyway. Flowers. The Navy named them. Garden names for working boats. Bluebell, Gladiolus, Campanula. They were built by riveters who had never seen a battleship and crewed by men who learned to time their meals to the sea. They proved a brutal truth modern war has relearned in every decade since. Excellence is a luxury. Availability wins campaigns. Britain didn't defeat the wolfpacks with queens. She did it with pawns. Enough pawns that the board itself turned against the wolves. The corvette wasn't the best ship in the Royal Navy. It was the right one, at the right cost, in the right numbers, at the only time that mattered. And that is why an island kept breathing long enough to win,